Hello and welcome to Say Yes to You and Why You Don't. I'm Claudia Braun, mindset and lifestyle coach for busy women who are great at saying yes to others, but not necessarily as great at saying yes to themselves. So last week we were talking about self-judgment, and I thought, what could be more fitting today than to talk about forgiveness, and particularly self-forgiveness? So when I talk to my clients, or when I talk to really anybody in general, people are really good at being able to admit when they're at fault, or they're easily to admit what's perhaps wrong with them, or what they haven't done right, or how they've messed up in some way. And yet, when it comes to forgiving themselves, when it comes to being able to let it go and not hold themselves hostage to what they did wrong or what they believe they did wrong, they have a harder time. So I want you to consider you in your life. How forgiving are you of yourself, of the mistakes you've made, of the things you've done that perhaps as you look back over your past, you're not that accepting of or that forgiving of? I find that many times people don't want to look at their past because they feel like they've done so many wrong things, or they've made so many mistakes, or they can't believe they're where they are and they should be somewhere else that they thought they should be, but they're not. And so they hold themselves in a really mean place of not allowing themselves to see themselves rightly. And they have all of this judgments, accusations, criticisms about themselves. And so today, I really want to go into exploring forgiveness and what that looks like, and why we want to do it, and what does it do for us, and what does it not do for us when we don't forgive ourselves. So when we start to look at forgiveness, I'm going to start actually with that last thing that I just said, which is, what does it do to us when we don't forgive ourselves? So when we don't forgive ourselves, and I've shared here that I struggled with my eating for years, uh, in my late teens, early teens, actually, early teens, late teens, up until my mid 20s, really. Um, it was a huge issue. I used food emotionally. I struggled with it. I'd be on weight loss diets and lose the weight, gain it all back. I mean, I had all this stuff around food. And I had all this judgment about myself, about what I was doing with food. And eating all that food, I gained weight. So then I had all this judgment about being overweight. So it was a painful place for me to be. It was a painful experience because all I could do was look at me overweight, me making all these mistakes, done diets, done things. It's like, I know better. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And so I just would berate myself in my mind, not necessarily to other people, but in my mind, I would berate myself of, there must be something wrong with me. I'm messed up. I can't figure this thing out. I made all these mistakes. I'll never figure this out. I'll never get this right. It's just doomed. I'm meant to be like this. I hate being like this. It just was such a conundrum. It made me feel so sad. It made me feel so really depressed because I couldn't change it. And then I just kept beating myself up for the fact that I couldn't change it, and that I had made all these mistakes. I'd eaten all that food. I bought that food, eaten all that food, spent all that money, all the stuff, like all the mistakes that I was making. And all I could see was all that I did wrong with it. Or, all the weird things I did with food, or all the ways that I hid out in food. So I didn't want to look at it because it was so painful. And so I didn't. I hid it. I, tried not to talk about it with people. Frequently wouldn't tell people I was on a diet. I would just eat differently. But I didn't really talk about it because I just had so much self-judgment and protection on myself because I didn't want to talk about it, because I just felt so insecure about it. And I didn't really want anybody to know the level of pain I had, the level of judgment I had, the level of feeling that there's something wrong with me. And because I thought if I talked about it, it just amplified there's something wrong with me, and you'll find that out. So I would hide it, and the more I hid it, the worse I felt, and the more it just grew. And it just became this big thing, and this thing in my mind. And so that pain that I experienced, that frustration, that stuckness, that I can't do this, really brought me to my knees, I would say, of a place of I surrender because I can't figure this thing out. And when I finally got there, things began to change because I surrendered and I was willing to admit what I'm doing isn't working and I need help. And, they say in 12-step programs, that's first place of being able to get help. When you admit you need help, you can get help. And that's a great place of change being able to step in. And I know that that's what happens for my clients when they step towards me. They begin to admit what I'm doing is not working. So I use the food as an example in my life because it's one area that I really was challenged by, and I held all this judgment and not forgiveness around. So when I admitted, yes, indeed, this is my issue. Yes, indeed, I am struggling with it. And yes, indeed, I do need help because what I am doing is not working and it's not getting me different results. That allowed me to start to kind of uncover what actually was really going on. And through that process of admission, through that process of unveiling, discerning, exploring, extrapolating what I actually was doing, and I actually shared with somebody the level of my messed upness with food. When I shared that level of messed upness about food, the hiding was no more, right? I'm not protecting myself anymore from that place. And from that place, only from that place, could I begin to see things rightly. And Course in Miracles says we only see things rightly when through the eyes of forgiveness. And forgiveness is a really hard place for most of us because, we do grow up in a very punitive society. Somebody does something wrong, they break the law, they get a ticket, they go to jail. I mean, we have a very, you do this, you're out. So it instills in us, oh my gosh, don't admit you made a mistake. Oh my gosh, don't admit that you're going to get this wrong because you're going to get in trouble. I mean, if we grow up in a punitive environment, self-judgment, judgment of others people's judgment, who wants to admit you did something wrong? Or who wants to admit you made a mistake? You don't. You want to hold on to it because you get found out, it's not going to go down well. And so that shift needs to happen, right? We talked last week about judgment, self-judgment keeps us in that bind. So the only way we make that shift out of that self-judgment and that bind in our mind is starting to be willing to open up to another way of seeing, another way of seeing through right eyes. Judgment, punitive punitive response to a situation where somebody makes a mistake is not right judgment. It's not right discernment, right? There's a difference between judging something and discerning. Discerning is we weigh whether or not this is something we want to continue or something we don't want to continue. So berating ourselves, holding ourselves in a vice of there's something wrong with me, that constant voice in your mind weighs you down, and it will stop you from being able to make any changes. So this is where forgiveness really comes in, because when we don't forgive ourselves, it's like a heavy weight we put on ourselves. It's like walking around with sandbags or walking around with barnacles on us. We can't move. That's what judgment does. Judgment keeps us small and stuck and protective and like an encasement. It's only when we open it up to the light, as they say, that which opens to the light heals, that which stays in the dark. And it's like flowers, right? If you're growing any flowers, you keep them in the dark for too long, they're going to wither and die. That's the same with us. When you open your mind, when you open your mind to another way of seeing that has more compassion, kindness, it drops the judgment. It drops that feeling of you did something wrong and you need to be punished for it. You did something wrong and you need to pay for it, and you need to hold yourself there all the time. That comes off. That feeling of I have to be perfect, that feeling of I can't make a mistake, you can breathe, right? You can rest in that place. And that really is the gift of forgiveness. When we hold back our forgiveness of ourselves because we say what we did was so bad, we can't forgive ourselves, we just hold ourselves to that and we don't let ourselves grow. So, can't emphasize enough the power of forgiveness and how that can change your relationship with yourself and your relationship with these things that you haven't given yourself permission to say yes to. So I want you to really consider that area of your life where you feel most held back, most stuck. Perhaps it's in your ability to extend kindness to yourself. If you're rushing around, busy all the time, can't slow down, usually there's not much forgiveness in that place. There's a heavy perfectionistic, there's a heavy, got to get it right, got to get it all done, can't make a mistake, people are counting on me, got a lot of things in the air, no time for resting because that's very frivolous, and who has time for that? You do that when you die. I mean, that kind of thinking will keep you trapped. That kind of thinking will keep you in a vice and will keep you feeling like can't really breathe, can't really relax. Can maybe go and relax when you go on vacation, but you don't take vacation, so that doesn't happen. Or you go on a vacation, it's just a day or two, and then you come back and you're like, okay, now I feel like I have to catch up. So, it's like you get it. That does not serve you. But what does serve you is a willingness to start to accept what is. Accept what is to that area of your life that you feel most desiring to change. So this area of maybe it is around your food. Maybe you're struggling with your eating right now and you can't seem to lose weight, can't seem to get it right there. Maybe you just extend some kindness and acceptance to yourself of, wow, this is really hard for me. I'm doing the best I can. I'm really good in other areas, but this area is not my strength. Let me start to see this differently. Let me see if I can see this differently. Maybe there's somebody I need to ask for help. You start to think about it. You start to be willing to consider another way. That is how forgiveness starts to filter in. It's like you allow a little light to come in. You got a little crack in the window. There's a little crack in the door opens a little bit. The light can come in. So as you begin to let the light in, you begin to consider things in a different way. You begin to be willing to say, what if I saw this with kinder eyes? Because this is forgiveness. What is forgiveness? It's kindness. It's compassion. It's a willing to see things through, as I say, through the eyes of love, right? I mean, when you have a child and they fall down consistently, you don't say, you little dummy, what is wrong with you? Can't figure this thing out. No, you get it. They're not that good at walking yet. I was just watching a little one. I was out at the gardens on Sunday, and she's just wobbling around as she's getting her steps, and she was so cute. But you could tell there might be a topple somewhere. She just wasn't that steady. Well, we can be that way, where we just feel like we're not that steady because we're still figuring this thing out. And that's where right, you hold lightly, you hold kindly to yourself. You hold kindly and lightly into your thoughts about yourself so that you can start to see yourself more lovingly. I think the most challenging thing that my clients have is being able to see themselves through the eyes of love. Self-judgment, no problem. Through the eyes of love, self-love, not as easy. So you don't have to make that jump from self-judgment to self-love like that, because it doesn't happen like that. And that's unrealistic. It starts with small shifts. You start to see yourself with and as somebody who is putting out effort, who is doing what she knows to do, who is beginning to see things in a different way. You see where, oh my gosh, I've been so consistently trying things. I've been so consistently making an effort here. Or I see where I lose my effort. Like I put in some effort, I don't get immediate results, and then I quit. Wow, that's interesting. Get curious about yourself. As if you were visiting, as they say, as if you were visiting a foreign culture. How does this culture operate? Start to get curious about yourself. Notice, maybe you're somebody who gets distracted. You start eating really well, and then life gets really busy, and you're like, well, I don't have time for that. I gotta go back to here. Like, become a witness, become curious, observant. That's different than judgment. Can you feel it? Judgment has an edge to it. It's like you're cutting a sword. It's like you're berating somebody. But curiosity is you step back. It's like you watch the little one and you're like, look at how they kind of wobble. I mean, you just kind of get curious about it. It's more fun. It's playful. You hold it lightly. This is the beginning of forgiveness. Because when you see yourself through those eyes, you can't judge yourself. The judgment will start to shift, right? The mind needs one thing to focus on. You start focusing on that thing, curiosity. How do I do this? Ah, that's interesting. Maybe that doesn't work so good. Maybe I try something else, right? You start to be willing and you start to have compassion for yourself as, wow, I'm somebody who struggles with this area. Don't know why I do. Don't know why this is so hard for me. I see my friends, they do just fine. I'm not like that. Some people are really creative. Some people are less creative. Some people solve mathematical problems easily. Some people not so much. It just is what it is. So when you start to become more aware, as we talked about in the first few episodes I did, awareness, accepting, you begin to have more gratitude for yourself, appreciation for yourself of, wow, I'm somebody who really wants this because I've tried for years. I've been working at this, I'm working at this. Wow, I see this about myself. Maybe I need to consider this. I haven't considered this before. Maybe this would help me. What if? And you start to shift. And above all else, you extend compassion to yourself for these things that are challenging, that don't come easily to you. You begin to see them through softer eyes, just as you do a small child. You see their challenges with kindness, with understanding. And so many times I see when I talk to women, there isn't a lot of kindness for themselves. There's a lot of, I should just get it. I should just get this done. And then I should be able to do 10 other things at the same time. That creates a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, a lot of overwhelm. And that is not the path to feeling peace, to feeling joy, to enjoying your experience, to really doing what you came here to do here. And it actually gets in the way of it. So today we focus on self-forgiveness. Where in your life can you extend more self-forgiveness? Where can you begin to see yourself through kinder eyes, through more compassion, through more love? Where can you be more appreciative, accepting of yourself? Because this is the formula to getting you to be able to say yes to you. When you hold yourself to rigid standards, when you judge yourself, when there are rules and there are restrictions and there are, this is how it is, it's not like this, you're out. I mean, all that kind of thinking creates rigidity within you. It creates rigidity in your body. You're going to physically feel it. Maybe your joints don't move so well. You get headaches more often. There is a ripple effect. What we're doing with our thoughts are creating an experience in our bodies. We can't be thinking all these negative thoughts and not feel it somewhere else. I had a woman at an event that was sharing with me that, I'm under so much stress that I'm popping ibuprofen all the time. That kind of ongoing stress, that kind of ongoing pressure creates that feeling of feeling like your head's in a vice and you do need to take some kind of relief. And that is a natural cause and effect. So if you start extending more compassion, more kindness, more appreciation to yourself, move towards forgiveness, towards appreciation. I think it's Sting that has this song that says, I think it's about forgiveness. It is about forgiveness. It's all about forgiveness, but it starts with ourselves. If we don't forgive ourselves, it's not going to happen out there. We are our main project, and it is the most loving thing that you can do to start with self-forgiveness. Because know that there's so many cliches. The change you want to see in the world starts with you. I mean, all of it. Everything you need out there starts in here. This inner game, this inner work that you see that maybe you're avoiding because it seems like it's going to be messy, it's going to take time, it's going to be take you down a rabbit hole. Whatever your mind is telling you is the key to your happiness. It is worth the effort. It is the best journey that you will take. The best journey that you will take. So I would love to hear your comments. I'd love to hear how forgiveness is speaking to you. What are you going to do as a result of listening to me today? What's one step towards forgiveness? What's one aspect of love or compassion or kindness or something that you are going to extend to yourself as a result of listening to me today? I really want to hear. And if you are listening, I ask you to please subscribe and please share my podcast. It would mean the world to me. And I also have a free gift to you, my dear listener, and that is 3 strategies to own your yes. And it will assist you to continue on this journey of saying yes to you. I am Claudia Braun. I'm a mindset, I'm a lifestyle coach. I coach one-to-one and I do group work. If you are struggling, please reach out to me. I'm Claudia Braun, mindset and lifestyle coach, and I will look forward to talking to you next week. All right, have a great week. Bye for now.